This story isn't folklore. It happened in a quiet Polish town just outside Krakow. You don't believe in things like curses, do you? Most people don't, until you experience one yourself. And even then, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to convince yourself it wasn't real. Hi friends, Kai here. What you're about to hear was told to me as true. I just started medical school. Rent near the university was impossible. So when I found a small flat just outside the city, cheap, quiet, half-furnished, I didn't think twice. The woman who opened the door looked older than the house itself. She had silver rings stacked on her fingers, and a long braid with beads and dried flowers woven through it. She said her name was Helena Wojcik, a zielarka, a herbalist by trade. My son moved away long ago, she told me. Her voice was calm, too calm. So now it's just me, and the house. Her eyes didn't blink enough. It felt strange, but I was desperate. At first it was peaceful, almost too peaceful. But then, the sound began. Always after midnight. Low, repetitive. Like someone praying through the walls. I told myself it was just a radio, but it came every single night. The same tone, the same rhythm, from her side of the house. About a week later, she invited me for dinner. She said she wanted to apologize for keeping me awake. The food smelled incredible. Herbs, spices, something sweet underneath. For a student living on instant noodles, it felt like a feast. I ate until I was full, thanked her, and went to bed. The next morning, I could barely stand. I was dizzy, lightheaded. My stomach twisted in waves. I chalked it up to stress, or maybe some bad food. But the feeling didn't pass. It grew. That night, the chanting returned. But this time it was louder. It felt like it was breathing beneath the floorboards. I finally worked up the courage to knock on her door. The sound stopped instantly. I waited. No answer. Only the smell of herbs drifting through the cracks. Bitter, metallic, wrong. It wasn't until the week of my semi-final exams that I realized something was seriously wrong. I was in the middle of a paper when my vision blurred. My chest tightened. And then, everything went black. I woke up in the campus clinic with an IV in my arm. The doctor said, stress, dehydration, the usual script. But I knew my body. This wasn't stress. That evening, I went back and told Helena I planned to move out. She just smiled. That same smile that never reached her eyes. The lease is binding, she said. No refund. You stay until the end of the month. Her tone wasn't angry. It was final. I couldn't stay there anymore. Not another night. I packed only what I absolutely needed. My notes, some clothes, my laptop, and moved into a friend's apartment for a few days. I told myself it was just until my exams were over, that I'd come back once everything calmed down. At least this way, I thought, nothing else could go wrong. 2 nights later, I went back to grab the rest of my things. Her door was slightly open, just enough to see candlelight flickering inside. I hesitated, then pushed it wider. A small table stood in the middle of her room. On it was a clay figure, shaped like a person, stuffed with dried leaves and twine. Across its chest, there was something that looked like hair. My hair. I froze. And then I saw her, standing in the corner, her eyes half closed. You shouldn't interrupt, she said quietly. It isn't finished. I ran. I ran before she could take another step. I didn't go home that night. I stayed with my friend, shaking, replaying her words over and over in my head. The next morning, I called my uncle, a retired police officer. I told him everything. He told me not to go back alone. He said he'd be there soon, and that I should wait for him before setting foot in that house again. When we finally arrived, Helena was already standing at the door, as if she'd been expecting us. My uncle greeted her in Polish, calm and polite. They spoke quietly for a minute. I couldn't understand most of it, but her expression never changed. Then she looked at me and said in English, "No refund. He stayed. The month is mine." My uncle just nodded once, as if that settled it. He turned to me, his face unreadable. As he started the car, he shifted into gear and murmured, "Z niektórymi ludźmi po prostu się nie dyskutuje." Then Quater, he translated. There are some people you just don't argue with. The way he said it made my stomach twist. It wasn't about the money anymore. He didn't want to be there either. A week later, the nausea was gone. The headache stopped. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. I passed my exams. Life went on. But sometimes when I boil herbs for tea, I catch a faint smell I can't explain. Mint, sage, and something bitter underneath. And when the house is quiet, really quiet, I still hear that same rhythm, low, steady, like someone praying through the walls. I tell myself it's just the pipes, just a memory. But sometimes, I swear I hear her voice whisper, Śpi dobrze. Sleep well. This story was told to me by someone who swore it really happened, in a small town just outside Krakow. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, I'd like to hear your story in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more. Hey friends, it's Kai. I've heard a lot of strange things in my time, but some stories stay with you. Tonight's one of them. It was something else entirely. Stick around because you need to hear this. I used to think jinn and black magic were just stories. Things my parents talked about. Things old aunties whispered about at weddings. I grew up in Manchester. Tram lines, takeaways, night shifts, and Deliveroo. Not some village with a witch in the woods. So when everything started, I blamed work stress. At first, it was little things. I'd put my keys on the table, turn around, and find them on the floor by the door. My phone alarm would switch itself off. Messages would be marked as read when I hadn't even opened them. I told myself it was burnout, too much work, not enough sleep. It made sense. Then, the nights changed. The first time it happened, I woke up at 3:19 a.m. I remember the exact time because my phone was on the pillow next to me, screen glowing. No notifications, no calls, but I couldn't move. It was like someone had dropped a concrete slab on my chest. My eyes were wide open. I could see the wardrobe, the curtains, the little red standby light on the TV, and something else. In the corner of the room, there was a shape, like smoke, but darker, tall. Its head was bent sideways, as if it was watching me. There was a sound. Not a voice, exactly. More like a whisper under the wallpaper. I tried to shout, but nothing came out. My throat was locked. I don't know how long it lasted. 30 seconds? A minute? It felt like an eternity. Then, just as suddenly, I could move again. I sat up, gasping for air. The corner of the room was empty. I remember grabbing my phone and Googling sleep paralysis at 4 in the morning. The internet said it was normal, common, nothing to worry about. So, I tried not to. I tried to believe it. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time. Same crushing weight on my chest. Except this time, there was pressure on my legs too. Like someone had sat down on the bed, slowly, at the foot. I didn't look. I couldn't. I was too terrified. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the wardrobe door creaking open. Just a crack. My phone was on the floor this time, the screen dark. And then something breathed in my ear. Hot. Shallow. And in a voice that sounded like it was coming from inside my own head, I heard one word. A name. Mayeen. The moment it released me, I bolted upright and threw the bedside lamp on. The room was empty. The wardrobe was shut. I looked at my smartwatch. My heart rate was over 140. I didn't sleep again until the sun came up. During the day, things got worse. I started dropping things at work, forgetting words mid-sentence. I'd stare at my computer screen and realize 10 minutes had just vanished. Once, I walked out of the office kitchen with a mug of tea, and my manager stopped me. He asked why I was crying. I hadn't even realized I was. My mom noticed over a weekend video call. She said I looked thin around the eyes, whatever that means. I told her I was just tired. She asked if I'd been waking up at the same time every night. When I said around 3, she went quiet. Then she said very softly, "Don't sleep alone tonight." I laughed it off. I'm not a child. I live in a modern city, not some horror film. That night, I went to bed early. I told myself I was going to prove it was all in my head. I woke up exactly once. Again at 3:19. This time, there was no sleep paralysis. I could move. I could breathe. But every single light in my flat was on. The kitchen, the hall, the bathroom. My phone was on the kitchen counter. Screen open on the clock app. The stopwatch was running. Time elapsed. 40 seconds. As if something had been timing me, watching. I didn't go back to sleep. The next day, I called in sick. My mom insisted I come and stay with my aunt for a few days. She lives across town. I didn't want to explain everything, so I just said I hadn't been resting well. My aunt took one look at me and said, "You've seen something, haven't you?" She made me sit at the kitchen table. She lit a small candle and put a glass of water next to it. Then she called someone on speakerphone. An old family friend. Someone who lives back home, not in England. Someone my mom calls when ordinary reasons run out. He asked me simple things. My name, my age, how long the problems had been happening. Then he said, "Did you bring anything new into the house recently?" I thought about it. A new jacket, new headphones, nothing dramatic. And then I remembered the parcel. About a week before all this started, a package had been delivered to my flat by mistake. It had the wrong name, but the right address. It was small, wrapped in brown paper. No sender. I'd left it on the shelf in the hallway, intending to drop it back at the post office, but I never did. That night was the first time the sleep paralysis happened. When I told him this, the man on the phone went very quiet. Then he said, "Go back there. Take it out of the house. Do not open it. And don't be alone when you do." The next afternoon, my uncle drove me back to the flat. It was broad daylight. Sun shining on the windows, people walking their dogs outside. But the air inside my flat felt wrong. Heavy. Like a room that hasn't been opened in years. The parcel was still there. On the same shelf. Right where I'd left it. But the paper looked different. Stained at the bottom. As if it had soaked up something wet. My uncle wouldn't touch it with his bare hands. He wrapped a tea towel around it. As he lifted it, I heard something shift inside. Like the sound of dried seeds. Or teeth. We drove straight to my mum's house. The man on the phone called again. He told my uncle to take the parcel outside, far from the house. I wasn't allowed to watch. There was a smell when they opened it. Even from inside the house, I caught it. Metallic. Rotten. My aunt turned up the TV volume so I wouldn't hear what they were doing, or what they burned. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up at 3 a.m. No pressure on my chest, no whispers. Just sleep. In the morning, the man on the phone said, "It was sent to you, but it couldn't enter fully while you had others near you." I asked him who sent it. He said, "People don't always need a reason. Sometimes, envy is enough." I moved out of that flat a month later. A different part of the city, a different building. I still work late. I still scroll on my phone at night. But sometimes, if I'm awake around 3, I think about that parcel, and whoever wrote my address on it. I still don't believe every story I hear about jinn and black magic. But now, when someone says, "It all started after a strange package arrived," I listen. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever experienced anything you can't explain, please share it in the comments below. Hey friends, it's Kai. Some neighbors keep secrets better than walls do. And in Lisbon, one of them left something behind. My building isn't old. It's not one of those haunted mansions you see on a hill. It's just a normal concrete block in Lisbon. 8 floors. Gray. Totally forgettable. I moved in last summer for a new job in a new city, trying my best to stumble through a new language. The only strange thing about the place was the woman in 4B. She was in her 50s, maybe older, and she always dressed in black. Not in a gothic way, just black. She didn't talk much, but she always smelled faintly of smoke and herbs, like someone was constantly burning something in a small, closed room. The very first time we shared the elevator, her eyes fixed on the necklace my mom had given me. It's just a simple silver pendant. She leaned in and said, "You should be careful with that." Her accent was heavy, maybe Eastern European. I kind of laughed it off and asked, "Why?" She glanced at the doors, as if checking that no one was listening. and then she whispered, "Some things shine too brightly. Things like that draw eyes." The doors opened and she stepped out. Her flat was 4B, mine was 4C, right next door. At first, nothing happened. I settled in, got used to the city, the trams, the hills, the late dinners. But then, at night, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning, I'd sometimes wake up to a faint sound coming through the wall. It wasn't the TV, it wasn't music, it was whispering. A woman's voice, low and fast, like a prayer being read backwards. And sometimes, there was this slow, steady knocking, not on my door, but on something wooden, over and over again. Whenever I'd creep out to check, the hallway was always empty. Her door was always closed. Then one night, I found something on my doormat. It was a small white cloth bundle, tied up with red thread. I figured it was a prank, or maybe just some trash from a craft project. But when I picked it up, it felt wrong. It was too heavy for its size, and it was warm. I took it into my kitchen and untied it. Inside was a small object wrapped in stained brown paper. I didn't open that part. Instead, I wrapped everything back up and knocked on 4B. She opened the door almost immediately, and her eyes went straight to my hands. "You should not have touched it," she said, her voice flat. I held it out to her. "Is this yours?" She took it, but not with her fingers. She scooped it up with a folded dish towel. Then she just looked at me for a long, uncomfortable moment. "You should put salt by your door tonight," she said, "and don't sleep with that necklace on." I was too surprised to argue. When she shut the door, I actually laughed. I even took a selfie and posted it with the caption, "My neighbor thinks I'm in a horror movie." That night, I woke up gasping for air. My room was pitch black. My phone was face down, no light from anywhere, but I could hear something. It sounded like nails dragging along the wall right behind my headboard. Slow, scratching. Then the sound moved. It crawled across the ceiling, right over me. I was completely frozen. The air got thick and hot, like standing too close to an open oven. And then there was a whisper, right above me. It wasn't in Portuguese, not in English, not in any language I knew. Something pressed down on the mattress, near my feet. I didn't look. I couldn't. All I could do was count my breaths and pray I wasn't making any sound. After what felt like an eternity, it stopped. The room cooled down. When I finally found the courage to turn on my bedside lamp, I saw faint hairline cracks in the plaster above my bed that definitely hadn't been there before. The next morning, there was a neat white line of salt drawn along the threshold of my doormat. I hadn't put it there. When I looked over, the door to 4B was open just a crack. She was inside, lighting a small bowl of something that smoked black instead of white. "Step over it," she said. "Don't break it." I did what she said. "Did you have bad dreams?" she asked. I didn't answer her, which I guess was an answer in itself. She just nodded. "It noticed you," she said. "You were shining. Something followed you home." I wanted to tell her that was ridiculous, that things don't just follow people home. This is Lisbon, not some medieval village. But then she showed me her arm. There were 3 long, pale scars, like fingers had once burned her skin. "Don't be proud," she said quietly. "Pride is how it gets in." That weekend, I stayed at a friend's place across town. We went out. We drank. We talked about anything and everything except my strange neighbor. And I slept fine. No scratching, no whispers. When I came back on Sunday night, the building felt quieter. There was no light under 4B's door. On Monday morning, there were 2 men outside the building, arguing in fast Portuguese next to an ambulance parked by the curb. My landlord told me later, in careful English, that the woman in 4B had passed away in her sleep. They found her sitting in a chair with a bowl of burned herbs in her lap. The windows were shut tight, and the smoke detector had been ripped off the ceiling. In the corner of her room, on the wall that we shared, the plaster was blackened in the shape of a hand. That night, I slept with all the lights on. At exactly 2:47 a.m., my bedroom door moved. Just a little. As if someone had pushed it with a single finger. Something brushed under the crack. When I finally got out of bed to look, there was a thin white line of salt running along my side of the wall. There were no footprints, no sign of who put it there. And on my bedside table, my necklace was lying next to my phone. I was sure I'd left it in the bathroom. I don't burn herbs, I don't chant ancient prayers, I still live in 4C. The flat next door is empty for now. But sometimes, around 3 in the morning, I hear that faint scratching in the wall, like something is trying to remember the way through. When that happens, I run my finger along the crack where the plaster darkened last year. The color never completely faded. I tell myself this is just an old building, that it's bad wiring or mice. But I never forget what she said. Some things shine too brightly. Things like that draw eyes. So now, before I go to sleep, I take off my necklace, and without telling anyone, I keep a small bowl of salt by the door, just in case she was right. Have you ever heard something you just can't explain? I'm fascinated by these unexplained auditory experiences, those phantom sounds that have no logical source. What's your story? If you've ever heard something that defies explanation, I genuinely want to know. Tell me in the comments what you heard and what you think it might have been. Thanks for watching, and if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to follow and subscribe.